Budget 25 overlooks joblessness. The previous budget, presented in July 24 after the Lok Sabha election, had accorded priority to employment and skill development given the nature of election mandate. The finance minister had announced a prime minister's package of 5 schemes and initiatives to facilitate job and internship opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over a 5-year period with a central outlay of 2 lakh crore. However, the budget speech delivered in Parliament on February 1, 2025 did not refer to the Prime Minister's package even once. The document on implementation budget 24-25 announcement states that a draft cabinet note on employment live incentive scheme is under finalization and several meetings have been held with the Ministry of Labour and CII to discuss the relationship between capital expenditure and employment generation. The September 24 report of the Periodic Labour Force Survey revealed that in 23-24 the youth employment rate for those aged 15 to 29 years had increased to 10.2% and the unemployment rate among the graduates was 13%. Time series data for the PLFS show that share of the workforce engaged in regular or salaried employment in the post-pandemic period has shrunk, while the share engaged in agriculture and informal self-employment has risen. The latest economic survey also shows that average real earnings of self-employed male workers in India fell from 9,000 rupees 9,400 to 8,500 in 23-24. In 2017, a latest economic survey also shows that average real earnings of a self-employed male worker in India fell from 9,400 to 8,500. The monthly real wages fell from average of 12,000 in 2017-18 to 11,000 in 23-24. Surplus labor inundating the job market combined with high food inflation have severely squeezed the real incomes and livelihoods uh, of an overwhelming majority of India's workforce. For a finance minister to overlook this is disingenuous. The advanced estimates of GDP has projected a decline of the real GDP growth of 6.4% in 24-25 from 8.2% last year. In keeping with this, so there is slowdown in the centre's net tax revenues in 24-25, with the finance minister keen on adhering to the fiscal consolidation path. The axe has fallen on government expenditure. Total expenditure is now likely to be 1 lakh crore short of budget estimates, with capital expenditure falling short of the target by over 92,000 crore. Public expenditure on rural and urban development, agriculture, education, food subsidy, energy, transport, and health are being axed. Among centrally sponsored schemes, the revised estimates for the Jal Jeevan Mission and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, both rural and urban, show declines of 47,000 crore and 38,000 crore respectively from their budget estimates. The expenditure on MG Narega was cut in the budget estimates itself by 3,600 crore from the previous year. Such deep cuts in the budgeted capital and welfare expenditures would have dampening effect on investment and consumption, especially in rural areas. The finance minister has sought to counterbalance the deflationary impact of these expenditure cuts by enhancing the annual rebate for income taxpayers from 7 lakh to 12 lakh for 25-26. Data from the income tax department show that only around 2.8 crore individuals had paid positive taxes in the assessment year 23-24. Out of the 7.54 crore filings income tax return, the income tax relief for the next year would therefore go to 2.8 crore individuals who form only about around 22% of India's salaried workforce. For the rest of who are faced with dwindling real incomes, there is nothing on offer. The finance minister has estimated The revenue foregone on account of income tax rebate of 1 lakh crore, instead a cut of a similar magnitude in indirect taxes such as the exorbitant excise duties on fuel or the central GST rates on mass consumption goods could have provided relief to the entire class of working people. It is well known that the consumption propensity of wage earners is higher than the profit earners. The average daily wage rate actually received by the MG Narega workers as per the data provided by the Ministry of Rural Development has increased from 200 in 2019 to 252 in 24-25. The national floor level minimum wage for unskilled workers in agriculture, in contrast, has been set at 452 in 24-25, a well deserved substantial hike in MG Narega wages in the union budget alongside an increase in rural development outlays would have led to increased consumption demand in rural areas. The consumption effect of the income tax breaks, in contrast, would be far more limited and concentrated in urban areas. The latest economic survey cites private sector research report to show how tax profit to GDP ratio of Nifty 500 companies surged from 2.1% to 4.8% in 23-24, while the deep corporate tax cut in September 2019 played a vital role. In this profit surge, has neither translated into higher levels of private corporate investment nor employment generation, yet 25-20 union budget has relied upon another tax break, this time for income taxpayers, to inject demand into the economy even while cutting capital and welfare expenditures to compress the fiscal deficit. This is unlikely to generate higher levels of economic growth and employment and raise the living standards and vast majority of the working people. It is evident that the government has run out of ideas on the economic front. How much in subsidies do fossil fuels receive? Estimates range from less than 1 trillion to 7 trillion depending on the ways in which the subsidies are defined. If we want to tackle climate change, we need to move away from fossil fuels to low carbon energy sources. The transition is a lot easier if the sources are cheaper than fossil fuels. However, fossil fuels are often subsidized, reducing the short term economic incentives to switch. Because subsidies can be defined in different ways, production, consumption, explicit, implicit, people can quote different numbers to the question, ranging from hundreds of billions of US dollars as much as 7 trillion. Let's start with explicit subsidies, government payments to make fossil fuels cheaper. These payments can go either towards fossil fuel producers so that extraction and refining cost is lower, called production subsidies, or the consumers so that they can buy fossil fuels cheaper than the market price, called consumption subsidies. Global explicit subsidies for the fossil fuels amounted to around 1.5 trillion dollars in 2022. This is equivalent to the entire GDP of countries like Russia and Australia. Around 80% of these explicit subsidies went to consumers and rest of the fossil fuel production. Global subsidies ramped up in 22 because the price of energy spiked due to Russia invasion of Ukraine. Consumption subsidies roughly doubled from 21 to 22 and fell back to their previous level in 23. In 22, the price of gas increased as much as 400. Many countries implemented mechanisms to support consumers, such as putting a price cap on gas and electricity. Now, the money was going towards subsidizing fossil fuels, but it's perhaps not quite as explicit. A subsidy, as the name might infer, a focus on governments was to make energy affordable for households and businesses, not specifically fossil fuels. Taking these subsidies away without cheap and available alternative energy resources would push some households into the fuel poverty. So far, we have focused on subsidies at the global scale level, but there are huge differences between countries. In map 2, you can see the level of fossil fuel subsidies given per person. This includes production and consumption subsidies, and it is shown for 21 before the energy crisis. Unsurprisingly, the countries that gave large subsidies are large fossil fuel producers. Major oil tank producers such as Saudi Arabia, Turkmenistan, Libya, and Algeria spend more than $500 per person, sometimes 1,000, to support fossil fuel production. These subsidies can represent more than 10% of GDP. Countries across Europe, North and South America, and East Asia typically give them $100 per person, and in Africa and South Asia, it's even less than $20. For India, this amount was closed around $3 in 2020 21, down from $9 in 2015. You might have heard 7 trillion quoted as the amount of subsidies going towards fossil fuel. That's more than 4 times the $1.5 trillion I mentioned at the beginning. That's because it includes implicit subsidies, societal cost of burning fossil fuels. When we burn fossil fuels, we cause local air pollution and drive climate change. Chart 3 breaks down 7 trillion figure into components. Example: consumption subsidies 14%, production subsidies 4%, foregone VAT 5%, implicit subsidies 77% arise from externalities such as air pollution, climate change, road use impacts. A section in the graphic outlines different approaches to reducing subsidies, such as cutting producer consumer support, implementing pollution or carbon taxes, and using road taxes or congestion pricing. Budget for children as a share of overall union budget 2.29%. The union budget has allocated 1,16,000 crore for children, marking an a 5% increase from the previous years of 1.09 lakh crore, but children rights bodies have expressed concerns over reduced allocations for crucial programs. Delegates who participated in IAPC Health Conference, Indian Association of Palliative Care, the share of backward classes in Telangana's population, 46.25% in backward classes, other than Muslim minorities, form the largest chunk of 3.7 crore population in Telangana according to the caste survey conducted in the state. This is followed by scheduled caste at 17.43%. Number of smart Anganwadis to be inaugurated in Kerala: 30. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan will inaugurate 30 new smart Anganwadis equipped with state-of-the-art facilities. Allocations for Lok Sabha in the latest budget: 903 crore. Lok Sabha has been allocated 903 crore, more than the double the amount given to the Rajya Sabha. Sizable allocation. On live-in relationships in Uttarakhand, what has Uttarakhand's Uniform Civil Code mandated with respect to the registration of live-in relationships? Should the parents of individuals be notified by the registrar, or how do landlords come into the picture? Are there penalties for concealing the relationship? What about privacy? Uttarakhand's Uniform Civil Code, passed by the State Assembly in February 24, mandates the registration of live-in relationships both at their commencement and termination. This requirement applies not only to residents of Uttarakhand but also to individuals residing elsewhere in India. The rules, which came into effect on January 27, 2025, impose extensive documentation requirements for such registrations, requiring individuals to in a live-in relationship to register with a government constitutes a gross violation of a right to privacy enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution. It also contravenes a nine-judge bench decision in Justice K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India, which affirmed that the right to privacy encompasses both informational privacy and decisional autonomy. Right to privacy encompasses both decisional informational privacy, and decisional autonomy. There can be no disproportionate intrusion by the state into the private realm of an individual. Alok Prasanna Kumar, co-founder of Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, told The Hindu. Under the code, only unmarried heterosexual couples can enter into live-in relationships. Couples currently in a live-in relationship or intending to enter in one can register through a newly launched online portal. For offline registration, they have to submit a 16-page form along with supporting documents to the concerned registrar. As stipulated in the Rule 15, Clause 3, Subclause E, applicants are required to submit an extensive set of documents for registration such as their photographs, their income tax PAN number, their Aadhaar linked to phone number, proof of residence of domicile within the state. If either partner is between the ages of 18 and 21, they must provide the Aadhaar linked phone number and address of each of their parents and legal guardians. The registrar is legally obligated to notify the guardians regarding the registration of relationship as well as the termination. A distinctive feature of the rules is their attempt to equate live-in relationships with the status of marriage. If a couple falls within the degree of prohibited relationships, such as outlined in Schedule 1, meaning they are related by blood, they must obtain approval from a religious or community leader certifying their eligibility to marry. The term degrees of prohibited relationships is derived from Hindu Marriage Act 1955, which forbids marriages between individuals who are lineally or consanguinely related unless such unions are permitted by local customs. Couples are also required to furnish proof of any prior relationships, particularly if they have previously been in a live-in relationship. Further, they are required to disclose their current status whether single, married, divorced, annulled, separated, or widowed. If the partners are already living together, they must provide proof of their shared household, such as most recent electricity or water bill. If they reside in a rented accommodation, they must also submit the landlord's full name, contact number, copy of the rent agreement. Registrar is obligated to contact the landlord while verifying the application details. If the partners are not yet living together, they must apply for a provisional certificate. Sorry. Upon receiving such a certificate, the couple must secure accommodation within 30 days with a possible 15-day extension. They must then apply for final registration, providing proof of the new premises. The rules are also impose specific obligations on landlords. When leasing property to a live-in couple, landlords must request either a provisional or final registration certificate, which will be incorporated into a rent agreement. Failure to comply will result in a penalty. Under the rules, the registrar is empowered to conduct a summary inquiry to verify the authenticity of submitted documents and ensure that the relationship was not established through coercion, undue influence, misrepresentation, or fraud. Failure to register live-in relationship within a month may result in both civil and criminal penalties. Upon conviction, a magistrate may impose a jail term of up to 3 months, fine of 1 lakh, or both. Providing false information or concealing details carries a stricter penalty, imprisonment of up to 3 months, or fine of up to 25,000, or both. The registrar, either acting suo motu or upon receiving a complaint regarding non-registration can file a notice directing compliance. False complaints may attract a line with repeat offenders facing a higher penalty. According to Apar Gupta, advocate and co-founder of the Internet Freedom Foundation, the rules allow third-party disclosures of personal data without sufficient safeguards. This will lead to large-scale social surveillance of relationships, which appears to be intended consequence of the legislation. There are no penalties for third parties in case of data leaks, which is particularly concerning since the exposure of personal information can pose real-world threats. This is likely disproportionately affect interfaith and intercaste couples. This will lead to large-scale social surveillance of relationships, which appears to be the intended consequence of the legislation. There are no penalties for third parties in case of data leaks, which is particularly concerning since the exposure of personal information can pose real-world threats. This is likely to disproportionately affect interfaith and intercaste couples. Under the code, only unmarried heterosexual couples can enter into a live-in relationship as stipulated in Rule 15, Class 3, Subclass E. Applicants are required to submit an extensive set of documents for the registration, such as their photographs, income tax PAN, and Aadhaar linked to their phone number, and proof of residence or domicile within the state. Failure to register a live-in relationship within a month may result in both civil and criminal penalties. Upon conviction, a magistrate may impose a jail term of 3 months or a fine of 10,000 or both. The legal system under which citizenship is acquired. What are the two different principles which govern citizenship laws in various countries? What was the system in the US? How are India's citizenship laws different? United States President Donald Trump issued an executive order stating that US citizenship will be granted in the future only to children with parents holding the US citizenship or a US green card. Citizenship is defined as full and equal membership of the country. Citizenship is defined as the full and equal membership of the country. In the words of Hannah Arendt, citizenship is the right to have rights. There are two important legal systems based on which citizenship is acquired in various countries. One of them is jus soli, means right of soil. Under this principle, a children's citizenship is determined by his or her place of birth, irrespective of the citizenship of their parents. Many North American and Latin countries like Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, etc., follow these principles while granting citizenship for children born within their country. The other is just sanguinis, which means right of blood. Under this principle, a child's citizenship is determined by the citizenship of parents. Many African, European, and Asian countries like Egypt, South Africa, Germany, India, etc., follow this principle. What are the current issue in the US? The US has practiced the grant of citizenship based on the jus soli principle. The 14th Amendment to the US Constitution, adopted in 1868, states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The US Supreme Court in 1898 reaffirmed that the 14th Amendment extends to all children born in the US irrespective of the parent's citizenship. The US has practiced the grant of citizenship based on jus soli principle. 14th Amendment to the US Constitution in 1868 states that all persons born to the naturalized United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The current executive order issued by President Trump, titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship, decrees and that American citizenship would be granted only to children with parents holding US citizenship or a US green card. This order is to be implemented from February 19. However, a federal court in the US state of Washington has temporarily stayed the order, stating that it is blatantly unconstitutional. So what about citizenship in India? Citizenship in India is governed by the Citizenship Act 1955 till 1987. India followed the Jus Soli principle, granting automatic citizenship to anyone born in India. Subsequently, the law was amended to introduce the jus sanguinis principle. Between 1987 and December 4, it was required that either of the parents of the child born in India was a citizen of India for granting the citizenship. Since 2004, the requirement was further restricted, wherein both parents had to be the citizens, or one parent is a citizen and the other is not an illegal immigrant. This was primarily to restrict citizenship to children born to illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. The Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 provides accelerated citizenship to Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, Parsis from neighboring countries of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh who have entered India before December 31, 2014. India has differentiated on the basis of religion by excluding Muslims for grant of accelerated citizenship for the first time through CAA 2019. Critics argue that this is against the basic structure of secularism under the Indian constitution. The argument made by the government is that it is only to grant accelerated citizenship to religious minorities of these three neighboring countries who have migrated to India owing to religious persecution in these countries and hence not discriminatory. The Supreme Court will decide on the constitutional validity of this law. Meanwhile, government should ensure that the implementation of this law does not create undue hardships for Muslim citizens. The Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 provides accelerated citizenship to Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, Jain, Buddhist and Hindu, Christian, Sikhs, Jain, Buddhist and Parsis from neighboring countries of Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh who have entered India before December 31, 2014. India has differentiated on the basis of religion by excluding Muslims for grant of accelerated citizenship for the first time through CA 2019. Critics argue that this is against the basic structure of secularism under the Indian constitution. The argument made by the government is that it is only to grant accelerated citizenship to religious minorities of these three neighboring countries who have migrated to India owing to religious persecution in these countries and hence not discriminatory. Supreme Court will decide on the constitutional validity of this law. Meanwhile, the government should ensure the implementation of this law does not create hardship for Muslim citizens. In the words of Hannah Arendt, citizenship is the right to have rights. The US has practiced the grant of citizenship based on Jus Soli principle. 14th Amendment adopted in 1868 states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Between July 1987 and December 2004, it was required that either of the parents of a children born in India was a citizen of India for granting citizenship. Since December 2004, the requirement was further restricted. The various challenges associated with AI driven genetic testing, as genetic information can be processed faster with artificial intelligence, the amount of personal data going under the scanner to be analyzed has also increased. This in turn increases the potential of plausible data security risk and leaks. The Human Genome Project, launched in 1990, concluded in 2003 and enabled the documentation, analysis, and building blocks of human DNA, revealing patterns that could indicate the likelihood of developing rare diseases or carrying genetic abnormalities. Initially, predictive tests were limited to exceptional cases due to their high cost. For instance, expecting mothers could undergo tests to detect fetal cells with chromosomal defects potentially associated with Down syndrome or cancer patients who could have their tumor examined to determine their most effective treatment option. The Human Genome Project, launched in 1990 and concluded in 2003, enabled the documentation and analysis of building blocks of human DNA, revealed patterns that could indicate likelihood of developing rare diseases or carrying genetic abnormalities. Initially, predictive tests were limited to exceptional cases due to their high cost. For instance, expecting mothers could undergo tests to detect fetal cells with chromosomal defects potentially associated with Down syndrome, or cancer patients could have their tumors examined to determine most effective treatment option. As genetic information can be processed faster with artificial intelligence, the amount of data under the scanner has also increased. In March 24, Johns Hopkins University researchers revealed the genetic code sequences which were previously ignored were found to be associated with tumors. Using machine learning techniques, they were able to analyze more than 1200 distinct types of junk DNA elements from tumors to deepen research around new therapies, new diagnostics, and new screening methods for cancer. Bootstrapped healthcare startup GeneBox leverages AI primarily to process vast amount of genetic data swiftly and accurately, uncovering patterns and insights that would nearly be impossible to identify manually. The AI-driven algorithm helps predict genetic predispositions, interpret complex gene environment interactions, and provide personalized recommendations based on individual genetic profiles. Moreover, their systems are designed to incorporate inputs from published, highly rated scientific evidence. By continuously updating our models with the latest research findings, ensure that our analyses are not only accurate but also grounded in the most current and reliable scientific knowledge. When it comes to predicting whether a child will get through an elite school or how likely is she in landing a high paying job, these testing tools can hardly offer a straightforward answer. These aren't a simple as a yes or a no question. It is a well known fact that genetics is only 30% of the contributing factor. There are other caveats. For instance, a diagnosis could change in the future or may not present a full picture, often falling under the gray zone of significance. These are known as variations of unknown significance. Sometimes other members of the family could be required to be tested to draw conclusive results, said Ms. Gayatri Iyer, a scientist at the Tata Institute of Genetics and Society. For example, research has linked about 80 genes to Alzheimer's. While genetic testing can identify the risky genes, it doesn't mean the patient is bound to get it. The test simply assesses the genetic risk by identifying certain genetic variations that are associated with Alzheimer's. Consequently, the patient can also develop Alzheimer's without having any of the associated genes. There are a bunch of questions we need to deal with. What if the test found something that the patient wasn't looking at all? How do you handle predictions of your mental health diseases? When dealing with sensitive cases such as determining genetic predispositions for conditions like depression or heart disease, we adhere to strict ethical guidelines. Our goal is to provide insights that can guide proactive health measures, not to make definitive diagnosis. Apart from genes, factors like environment, diet, and schooling play equally important role in child's development. For instance, a diagnosis could change a future or may not present a full picture. These are known as variations of unknown significance. Some times other members of the family could be required to be tested to draw conclusive results. Why should users remain cautious? Nucleus, a genetic testing startup founded in 2020 by a 23-year college dropout, had promised to analyze cancer, depression, longevity, and how extroverted a person might be, among other diseases and traits, better than any other firm of its kind. The startup received $14 million in funding from some of the most eminent names in Silicon Valley, such as VC firms led by PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel and Reddit co-founder Alex Ohanian. In a promotional video on X, Sadeghi said, an inevitability that every single person has an entire human genome on their iPhone. If that sounds like a data security risk waiting to happen, that because there is a similar case that is fresh in public memory, that the once popular consumer genetic testing company 23andMe was at the receiving end of the data security breach in October 23 after hackers gained access to personal data including family trees, birth years, geographic locations of 6.9 million users and sold it on dark web. The company was directed to pay $30 million fine in September and provide 3 years of security monitoring to settle the lawsuit. It has been a dramatic fall for the company that was considered as pioneering and valued at around $6 billion in 2021. In the following months, most of the company's board resigned en masse, leaving co-founder On Wojcicki as the sole member who has been contemplating delisting the company from Nasdaq. In November, it fired 40% of its workforce as the company implores the looming question around what happens to the DNA data of 15 million customers. Becomes a pushing worry. Customers have scrambled to delete a video or withdraw their genetic data before the firm goes bust or ownership changes hands, but there are a couple of caveats. If users opted in to have their genetic data analyzed, the information can't be withdrawn. A company spokesperson said about 80% had opted in. Additionally, companies like 23andMe don't fall under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which has federal laws protecting consumer data. Although Ms. Wojcicki has promised users that the firm will stand guard over their data, there's little that inspires confidence right now. But since the AI cat is out of the bag, fledgling sector of AI-infused genomics has been drawing more interest. Investors recognize long-term value and impact of these technologies, particularly as the demand for personalized healthcare solutions rises. ED attaches overseas assets worth 16,000 crore in high-profile cases. Central agency has cracked down on properties in US, UAE, Japan, and several other foreign jurisdictions in cases involving houses such as DHFL and prominent persons such as former IPL chief Lalit Modi, Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksi, and Jet Airways founder Naresh Goyal. From large tracts of land and residential premises to commercial properties and bank accounts, overseas assets valued close to 16,000 crore across 16 foreign jurisdictions were attached or frozen in the recent past. These properties are located in United States, United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, etc. In cases where proceeds of the crime are tracked down to any other country, the ED may issue attachment freezing confiscation orders for service or execution of such orders. Chapter 9 of Prevention of Money Laundering Act provides for the mechanism to seek assistance from the contracting state where the POC has been parked. According to government records, the Sterling Bank Biotech Limited bank loan fraud case tops the list with 9,000 crore of movable assets in the US, UK, Comoros, etc. 16,000 Vizag steel plants employees opt for VRS. A total of 1,600 both executives and non-executives of the Rashtriya Ispat Nigam Limited corporate entity of the Visakhapatnam steel plant are said to have applied for VRS offered by the management as per the Ministry of Steel guidelines. Out of them, 660 said to be executives, 940 non-executives. According to the sources, total number of regular employees is 12,000, including 3,900 executives. As per the guidelines, 4,000 employees out of the 12,000 are eligible for VRS. Applicants are expected to receive VRS sanction notice to 1 month's service notice by mid-February. Around 500 crore is said to have been allocated for VRS applicants. Up out of 1600 applicants, to around 1200 may get VRS sanction order. The steel plant once had a turnover of 28,000 crore and an operating profit of 940 crore when the center announced disinvestment plan in January 2021. Senior employees are leaving in the name of VRS. He says the employees are unhappy with the package, financial problems in all these 4 years, delays in salary payment, and health issues. The permanent workforce, which is lower than other plants in the country, will gradually be reduced in future. The reduced workforce can handle only three blast furnaces. The third furnace will be restarted in June-July. So the existing staff will have to work under severe stress to handle the furnaces. This is one of the main reasons behind the VRS. BJP seeks fair probe into the alleged animal sacrifice at Parasnath's Marangburu in Jharkhand's Parasnath region. Tensions between the Jain community and Adivasis have escalated. Prestigious battle between BJP SP livens up sleepy Milkipur. Ravi Pasi, a Samajwadi Party worker from Mau, is focused on at least six daily Nukkar street corner meetings in Ayodhya's Milkipur constituency, whereby poll is scheduled on February 5. Budget's tariff tweaks will correct bad optics. While India's peak custom duty rate is now 70%, the import duties on top 30 items exported by US to India, led by crude, petroleum, coking coal, aeroplanes, and liquefied natural gas, are minimal in the range of 0 to 7.5%. The Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs Chairman Sanjay Agrawal said in an interview, rationalization of tariff rates, bringing them to from 15 to 8 slabs, including zero rate, and lowering the rate should help correct the bad optics and send a clear signal to the world that we are not a high tariff country, even as Mr. Trump has notified higher tariffs on imports from Canada, China, and Mexico. Indian officials have learned to have readied a fact sheet laying out a country tariffs on US products, some of which have been slashed further in the budget. This could be presented to American counterparts through diplomatic channels. Financial Security Tohin Kanta Pandey, who also leads the Department of Revenue, asserted that government was autonomously reviewing India's customs duty structure to rationalize it. It announced in the budget, we have finished the peak rates 150, 125, 140, 35, 30, and 25%. Those rate slabs are gone. It is an indication to both our industry as well as to the world that we are not a high tariff nation. Our average tariff has come down to 10.6%. Trump slabs tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China. Mis- uh, China's Commerce Ministry said in a statement it would take corresponding countermeasures and file a claim against Washington at the World Trade Organization. Retaliatory tariffs, and Canadian Prime Minister, who spoke with Machine Winds, separately said the country would hit back with 25 levies of its own on select American goods. Tax break with kickstart the slowing economy. The fact is that there was also angst which I think government noticed. The second is also economic reasons slow down. This is a good and new deal. If the money comes to the government, it will be put in a certain way. If the money goes back to the people, the money is distributed in a more equitable way, and I'll explain why. If I give the money to you and you have three choices, you can consume as per your choice, be it travel, dining, service, consumer durables, which will be much broad based and not just in steel and cement. If people choose to save instead of consuming, this would also help as India's savings rate need to go up and bank deposits need to grow up to support credit flows to critical segments such as micro, small, and medium enterprises. Third, you may choose to invest directly. Have we forgotten about household investments? Millions of houses are being made or rebuilt on people on their own across small towns. They raise the money, order things on their own, get a contractor to rebuild their own houses. We heard the voice of the middle class. Sitaraman, finance minister, said PM was fully behind the idea to cut taxes, but it took time to convince the bureaucrats. Hints at a new law on direct tax that is simpler and easier to comply with. Paraphrasing former US President Abraham Lincoln, finance minister said, Union budget by the people, for the people, of the people. We have heard the voice of the middle class who have been complaining about the aspirations not being met despite being honest taxpayers. Special Assembly session in Telangana tomorrow to discuss caste census. 46% backward classes, 15%, 17% scheduled caste, 15% other castes, 10% Muslims in backward class category, and 10% scheduled tribes. The Telangana government has decided to convene a special session on assembly to discuss and adopt a comprehensive report of socio-economic, education, employment, political, and caste survey. The survey report will be approved by the state cabinet, which will meet at 10 a.m. Mr. Uttam Kumar Reddy was speaking after the Backward Class Commission submitted its report and recommendation on the caste survey, the first of its kind conducted in the state. Mr. Uttam Kumar Reddy described the caste survey as a revolutionary step towards the social justice in Telangana. The state cabinet in February last year approved the decision to conduct a caste survey, which was subsequently granted approval from legislation on February 16. The actual survey, engaging 1.1 lakh enumerators and close to 10,000 supervisors, was conducted in 50 days, after which tabulation and data entry was carried out. 96% of the population was covered during the survey, which has no parallels in its magnitude since independence. 3% could not be covered due to door lock status, and few which do not wish to take part in the exercise. The survey would enable the government to take up data-driven welfare opportunities in social, economic, educational, employment, and political spheres. AIDA-DMK BJP lacks strength to face DMK in bipolar Stalin. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin on Saturday Sunday said that the AIADMK and the BJP boycotted the by-election to erode East Assembly constituency on Feb 5, as they did not have the strength to fight the DMK and face the people. India reviewing its stance on crypto due to global changes. India is reviewing its stance on cryptocurrencies due to shifting attitudes towards the virtual asset in other countries. Forum flags fall in employment days under MGNREGS. Jharkhand outfit calls for protest for Sarna Code. The Rashtriya Avasi, based in Jharkhand, has given a call to scheduled tribes association across the country to join a protest for separate Sarna religion code in upcoming census. Outfit, which have been part of the movement of separate religion column for scheduled tribe communities in India, has said it will be heading a mass demonstration over the issue at Jantar Mantar. Congress forms panel to monitor free and fair polls, and budget focused firmly on employment generation. Labour Ministry got its highest ever allocation in this year's budget, and the increase in funding will help focus on new employment generation scheme. The record 32,000 crore allocation is almost 80% higher than the last year revised estimates. Ministries makers main focus on new employment generation scheme, for which the budgetary allocation has been doubled to 20,000 crore. The allocation under the employees pension scheme has been increased by 300 crore, and the PM Shram Yogi Mandhan Yojana by 37%. Commenting on the social security benefits for gig workers, he said, the gig workforce is a vital pillar of India's new age economy. The government's decision to provide them with identity cards, e-shram registration and healthcare security under the PM Jan Arogya Yojana is a transformative step towards the social security and well-being. This will empower nearly 1 crore gig workers. Navigation satellite launched last week suffers malfunction. ISRO fails to carry out orbit raising operation, says alternative strategies for utilizing NVS-02 for navigation in an elliptical orbit being worked out. The ISRO has been unable to perform the intended orbit raising operations for the NVS-02 due to wall malfunction. The NVS-02, the second satellite of the NVS series, was launched on January 29 as part of its landmark 100th launch from Sriharikota. The space agency on Sunday said the orbit tracing operations towards the The satellite to designated orbital slot could not be carried out as the walls for admitting the oxidizer to fire the thrusters for orbit raising did not open. The ISRO was supposed to carry out orbit raising operations after the launch but has been unable to perform the maneuvers. Satellite systems are healthy and the satellite is currently elliptical orbit. Alternate mission strategies for utilizing satellite for navigation in elliptical orbit is being worked out. After Manipur, Assam destroys poppy plantations. After Manipur, Assam has begun destroying poppy plantations on Sunday. Police in Golpara district of Western Assam used tractors to destroy poppy plants on more than 56 acres of a sandbar in Brahmaputra. Indians in Congo asked to deport to safer places. The embassy of India in Kinshasa, DRC, on Sunday said it is closely monitoring the security situation in Central African country and asked all the Indian nationals in Bukavu to immediately depart to safer locations. 5 killed, 35 injured as first falls into gorge in Gujarat. Controversy over Saraswati Puja in Kolkata College. The controversy over organizing Saraswati Puja at Yogesh Chandra Law College took a different turn as West Bengal Education Minister Bratya Basu faced protest by a group of students. I am here to talk to you. None will coerce you, terrorize you, or threaten you. If anyone has issued any threat, we will take strong actions against them. Following the controversy between two groups of students on college premises over the organization organizing the puja, Calcutta High Court on Friday asked Kolkata police to ensure that the ceremony can be held by college law students with adequate security. India cannot allow millions of illegal migrants, says Vice President Dhankar. Our nation cannot afford to have millions of illegal migrants. We cannot allow our electoral politics to be disturbed by demographic dislocations and earthquakes. These are things that will matter to you because these are challenges for which you will have to collectively finally answer. CGI Supreme Court judges hear out issues of district judiciary, discuss case pendency and recruitment. Three workers die while cleaning drain in Kolkata. Archikar MBBS student found dead in her room. January records a subdued power consumption growth of just 3%. Sugar production expected to decline. ISMA Udan expansion plan to spur tarmac coaches demand. Union budget plan to add 120 new destinations across India under Udan scheme for regional connectivity is expected to drive demand for electric airport tarmac coaches. NMDC's iron ores output up 12% in Jan. Dr. Reddy's laboratory faces 184 crore penalty over unpaid GST. On excess refund settlement, a pragmatic budget. Dr. Lakshmi Narayanan, budget boost allocations for the plantation sector, led by hikes for tea. WeWork India's franchise files for IPO in Mumbai. Exporters seek extension of interest equalization scheme. For getting affordable rates of credit as the demand was not mentioned in the budget. The scheme, according to exporters, has helped them avail rupee export credit at competitive rates at the time when global economy is facing headwinds. In September last year, the government extended the scheme till December 31. RBI's rate stance quarter 3 results to drive markets this week. RBI's interest rate decision, quarterly earnings for global cues would be the major driving factors for equity market this week. Analysts say, adding that the impact of union budgets could linger on this week. US and India manufacturing PMI for January to be released on Monday will be the key macro data to watch out for, said Siddharth Khemka, heads of research wealth management. Fentanyl is US problem, says China as it denounced tariff. EU vows to respond firmly if targeted. Rubio in Panama for talks as Trump seeks return to canals. Starmer hails real progress on UK-Germany ties on coal stocks. New Syria leader meets Saudi crown prince on first foreign visit. Iran unveils new ballistic missile that can travel up to 1700 km. Japan launches a navigation satellite on a new flagship rocket. Two killed, buildings destroyed in West Bank. Netanyahu to discuss Hamas victory with Trump on US visit. Moscow Kiev trade blame over deboarding school attack. UK to introduce laws against AI tools used to generate sexual abuse images. Heartening to see sports efforts of India under 19 players. A golden generation has arrived. Mithali on India's under 19 triumph. Women's cricket in India has come a long way, says Ganguly. BCCI announced cash award of 5 crore to the victorious team. India caps dream run with emphatic victory over South Africa in summit clash. Trisha starts with both bat and ball to help the side retain title. Spinners Vaishnavi Ayushi and Parinika chip in with vital strikes. Proteas fall to get going after opting to bat. Abhishek's blitz blows away England in finale as India wins series 4-1. Dubai claims 6, Vidarbha gets past Hyderabad. Crispin is a national senior women's team head coach. Former India youth team player Crispin Chetri has been renamed the national senior women's head coach. Pragnanda and Gukesh in joint lead. Sivre placed Jamshedpur past FC Goa. Who is benefiting from the ATP challenges in India? In an otherwise damsel tennis scene in India, one positive in recent years has been the conduct of a handful of ATPWA and ITF tournaments. Three states, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, have put their best foot forward to help Indian players to gain crucial points and move up the ranking. The results, however, paint a different picture. There has been only one Indian singles winner in 12 challenges from 2019, Sumit Nagal in Chennai last year. World number 105, Nagal, who reached the top 100 after winning in Chennai, is not playing any of the four competitors. High risk, high reward, India redefining T20's antithesis. India took more time than most to wake up to the possibilities that exist within the ambit of a 20-over format. The 10-wicket loss to England in the semi-final of the 2022 T20 World Cup is often but wrongly hailed as the catalyst for change. If anything, it was disappointment in the desert sands of Dubai that was a seminal turning point. It helped that, though, the system emerged Suryakumar Yadav and Arshdeep, the two key players in India, Promethean charge towards the top. Study finds a way to predict when cracks would develop in paint, clay, milk, blood. PhD student Vaibhav Parmar and Professor Rajni Bandyopadhyay of the Soft Condensed Matter group at RRI Bengaluru examine how elasticity of clay changed as it dried, slowly changing from a flowing liquid to a solid to a brittle sheet, in the process uncovering a link between elasticity of clay and crack onset time. Researchers have found out they can predict when cracks appear based on the initial thickness of a colloid sample as its elasticity. Using this, they were able to delay the onset of cracks by mixing eddy within the colloid. Clay, milk, blood, and paint are colloids. Researchers said these findings could be applied to all colloids beset by cracks. Any change in red blood characteristics will change crack patterns on a substrate after a drop of blood has dried. Paint-on building undergoes changes in temperature and humidity daily. Researchers intend to perform experiments in which they vary these parameters and study how formation of crack changes accordingly. Small modular reactors, pocket nuclear plants. A billet of enriched uranium. Many SMR designs require the high assay low enriched uranium. enriched to 5 to 20% as nuclear fuel. In her 24-25, the 25-26 budget speeches, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman emphasized contributions from the nuclear power in India to meet its renewable energy targets. A new mode of nuclear power generation soon expected to enter the mix is small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are designed to be smaller, more flexible, easier to build than traditional nuclear reactors. Each SMR will produce less than 300 megawatt of power. Scientists are also exploring even a smaller design called the micro reactors to produce 1 to 20 megawatt of nuclear power each. The larger than conventional nuclear power facility, the more commercial viability. The more commercial viable it will be. The SMRs aim to buck this trend by being cheaper to build and safeguard. Its proponents say different parts of an SMR can be machined separately, then assembled in a factory and transported to the site rather than having to be built on site. A reactor with such a design can also be scaled up more easily than a conventional reactor. SMRs have some downsides. For one, they still need experimental and the need considerable capital investments without guarantee they will be profitable. For example, the first generation of SMR designs require low-grade uranium as a nuclear field to operate and thus will need to be refueled more often, which is not desirable. In this year's budget speech, Ms. Sitaraman announced a nuclear energy mission with 20,000 crore outlay to study SMRs and operationalize 5 indigenous units by 2023. Outskirts of Tarantula Nebula, about 160,000 light years ago, at its center, the nebula, roughly weighing 200 times the Sun. Tax break will give a fillip to the slowing economy center, advocating trust in the people's wisdom. Finance secretaries say taxpayers will help the economy by spending, saving, or investing the benefit. The economy requires all kinds of engines to be fired. Modi attacks AAP, Lord's People's Budget in the final election rally in capital. Up appoint observers in New Delhi seat, Kejriwal urged EC alert on the eve of Basant Panchami Amrit Snan. ED charges overseas assets worth 16,000 crore. Trump slaps tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China. Budget's tariff tweaks will correct bad optics. Over 260 refugees from Myanmar seek shelter in Manipur. PLA cadre identified as Henthoiba, 28, resident of Kakching in Manipur, was reportedly killed on January 27 in exchange of gunfire along with Manipur border with Myanmar. The PLA is an armed wing of the Revolutionary People's Front, which said in a statement on January 30 that Hentioba succumbed to injuries sustained during the encounter with proxy enemies in an attack planned by Indian Army. Officials said the news of deaths of Manipuri youth may be exaggerated as part of the propaganda to glorify insurgents. Last week, hundreds attended a funeral for a member of the Pan People's Liberation Army in the Imphal East. Amid the civil war in Myanmar, there have been reports of a funeral attended by hundreds of people held by for a member of banned outfit based on Manipur. The funeral for People's Liberation Army cadre was held at a public ground in Manipur's Imphal East. PLA is a banned Metis insurgent outfit which espouses secession of Manipur. When asked how armed men were allowed to hold a public funeral for the member of a banned organization in Imphal's East Up Andro, a senior government official said there was no body. The funeral rituals took place in absentia. Need independent observers in New Delhi seat, AAP chief to EC. Rahul dares Kejriwal to drink Yamuna water. AF refuses funds to refused funds, fearing Modi would get credit. BJP's win will bring unrest. AAP medical force on high alert on eve of Basant Panchami. Webinar exposed career academic prospects at VIT 3 held for offering MPSC papers for 40 lakh. Row in Kerala over Union ministers castist remark high-born individuals could lead Union Tribal Affairs Ministry says Suresh Gopi. Maoist frustrated Fadnavis after man killed in Gadchiroli. Will seek over 20 seats for Bihar poll, Jitan Ram Manjhi. BJP panel slams AAP over bid to vandalize Ambedkar statue. Sambhal violence, one more arrested, 74 people held so far. During the survey of November 4 last year, protesting locals clashed with security personnel, leading to violence which led to death of 4 people. No allocation of funds for turmeric board, says PRS. Karnataka government plans ordinance to stop repayment of loans to unlicensed MFIs. Livestock census enumerators flock to villages as country counts its cows, camels and quail. Tamil Nadu IPS officer alleges attempt on her life for flagging irregularity. A senior IPS officer has alleged that an attempt was made on her life after she exposed senior irregularities in the police recruitment. Kerala should declare itself backward for federal aid. Fadnavis Shinde ties strained Samna, no truth in it, says BJP. Aero India airspace closure revised to allow more flights. Bangalore International Airport, which operates the Kampagoda International Airport, has revised passenger advisory on closure of airspace during the upcoming Aero India 25. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.